The night was taking its final breaths, but the darkness was nothing compared to the shadow inside Anna Weiss. She stood alone on the fog-soaked battlefield, her trembling hands hiding not from the enemy but from herself. The air was so cold it sank into her bones, yet the fire in her chest refused to die. For the first time she felt that war did not just imprison the body, it captured the soul. Suddenly the distant sound of marching boots shattered the silence. A fear silent but sharp rose in her heart. She closed her eyes as if she could remove herself from this cruel world for even a moment. But how long can anyone run? Fate always moves faster. A beam of light struck her face, and as her eyes opened, the truth hit her: her time had run out. 3 Soviet soldiers circled her, suspicion and cruelty frozen in their cold eyes. Their gaze held one clear decision. She would not leave this place alive, or if she did, her life would be a life she would no longer recognize. Anna was shoved backward, her knees sank into the mud, and the pain that hit her was not physical, it was the pain of hope collapsing. A faint breath escaped her lips, a breath mixed with exhaustion and fear. She knew her story no longer belonged to her. Others would write it now. The soldiers tied her hands with rough rope and forced her to stand. With every step, the water in her boots splashed, draining out whatever strength she had left. They ripped her identification papers, tore at her uniform, the same uniform she once wore with pride, now turned into a symbol of her defeat. Anna was dragged into a broken warehouse. Darkness, stench, and the cracking of old wooden beams surrounded her like an omen. She felt as though the building itself was waiting for her death. They tied her to a rusted iron pillar, hands locked above her head. The cold was numbing her fingers, but deeper than cold was the ache in her soul, a place where hope once lived. All night, one sound tormented her: the dripping of water from the damaged roof. Each drop reminded her that the night would be long, and perhaps her last. At dawn, the interrogation began. But the questions were not questions, they were punishments. Raised voices, threats, accusations, and fingers pointing at her from every direction, as if she were not a person but a document waiting to be torn apart. Yet a strange strength lived inside her. She wanted to break, but she didn't allow herself to. Tears filled her eyes, not out of weakness but fatigue. She answered with silence. She knew speaking would change nothing. Silence was her last weapon. Hours passed, and Anna felt herself drifting away from her own body. Her body belonged to her captors now. The pain was indescribable pain the body felt, but the soul endured. She thought of home, of her mother's laughter, her father's advice she never followed, and most of all, her younger brother who called her "my brave Anna." That memory alone kept her alive. By the 3rd day, she realized the greatest torture was not pain, it was loneliness. Pain can be endured, but loneliness eats people alive. On the 4th day, her legs began to fail. Soldiers dragged her, pushed her, tied and untied her as they pleased. She closed her eyes every time, believing darkness could hide her suffering, but the world is never that kind. On the 5th night, as thunder roared outside, she heard a whisper. A soldier, younger than the rest, stepped closer and said softly, "You don't deserve this." That single sentence pierced her heart. Somewhere, humanity still lived, even if only a drop, but that soldier too had limits. He couldn't free her, and Anna, she couldn't free herself either. That very night, Anna surrendered not to the enemy, but to her own exhaustion. She felt the last bit of courage slipping from her fingers. She smiled faintly, a smile filled with surrender, pain, and a tiredness no human should ever know. Then came the 6th morning. The door creaked open, boots gathered. A cold command echoed and Anna's breaths grew heavier. Her mind blurred. She lifted her eyes one last time, looking at the broken wooden beams above, as if her freedom was hanging there. Her breaths weakened, slow, painful, yet strangely peaceful. And then, silence enveloped the room. It felt as though war erased her story right there. But stories never truly die. People leave the world but become memories. And Anna Weiss, she became a memory of pain, of courage, and of the silence that war leaves behind. An unfinished, unheard, heartbreaking memory.